Sweet guys. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on today. It's nice to be able to jump on this. Now it's been a long time coming. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Platten. I'm the owner of Affluent.co, and as Johnny very kindly said, we are a multi-service digital marketing agency and online education business as well. I came from a sales background and actually just didn't find any fulfillment in that. I was always very financially motivated and kind of realized I needed to work for myself to be fulfilled within what I wanted to achieve out of my life. And so I quit my job about 3.5 years ago, started a marketing agency focusing on Facebook ads purely locally. I documented that journey across YouTube, which opened up a number of different opportunities, such as our educational business. And yeah, the sky's been the limit since then. We're continuing to scale and continuing to build the team every week, and of course inspire as many people around the world as we can about joining digital marketing and scaling digital marketing businesses of their own.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I know you're obviously incredibly successful. You've worked your ass off to get to this point, but for me, when I know you released a video back last year, and it was the I haven't been completely honest with you video, the one you kind of I think you fell off your board and smashed your face up, and then you made the video, but it was that video of you talking about that for me that actually made me pull the trigger, because I've been watching your videos from like the end of December to like the start of January, around that point. I've been watching them, and I started like working on bits for an agency, and it got to the point I was working in work, I was using their Wi-Fi and all this caper, and then it got the point you put that video out, I watched that, and it was so relatable because so many things that you talked about I've went through as well. It was so scarily similar. And that's what I think. When I looked at it on my Instagram stories, 2 days later, I quit my job, and that was it. I signed one client the day after I watched that video. I signed my second at a meeting. The day after that, I quit my job, and that was it from the start. And one of the things you talked about in that video was what you called the platy itch, where you get sort of you have to find something new to get on at, and that's the same for me. You know, same other than my very first job when I was 16. I've never spent more than a year in a job. I've been an employer's worst nightmare, to put your words on it. What for you is that platy itch? What is that for you now?
Good question, man. I mean, I think I've had that forever. Like it's been something that I think I used to maybe think it was sometimes a negative thing. Like from as far as I can remember, like I always say it's also the curse of 1 year, and 1 year comes along and I want to move on to the next thing. I never had a job for longer than a year in my life, and I started working at 13 years old. Doing a paper round, and that's why I said I was an employee's worst nightmare, because I just wanted to jump from job to job to job, opportunity to opportunity, and it's that obsession with progression that I've had from a very young age. And it doesn't always mean necessarily I'm progressing into something which is of a higher level. Sometimes it's just having a change, and maybe that's changing a car, maybe changing a job which is a similar pay, but you just want to have some kind of a different role. And I think it's a desire for variety within my life. And I think it's not till I got older that I kind of realized I was constantly just searching for a greater fulfillment or just more happiness within my life. So that obsession with progression turned from me renting a different property every year to then jumping through a new sales job every year when I got removed from university, to then realizing that getting more and more money on those new sales jobs wasn't fulfilling, to then thinking, okay, I'm going to start a business. But even when I've started a business, I launched my digital marketing agency, and a year later we launched the Affluent Academy, and a year later after that we launched Learn Ads. And so I still have that, and I think it's something I've very much learned to embrace, and kind of realize that I studied architecture at university, and I think that says a lot about me. I'm a builder, I'm an architect at nature. And so I like building new things. I like working on new things. And I think if I ever feel stagnant in my life, my brain just doesn't allow me to sit in that position for a long time. And so for me, the platy itch is that obsession with progression. It's the obsession for something new and that desire to never be stagnant. So it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes you're like, geez, man, I only just got into this position and now I already want something new.
Do you think, obviously, through becoming, not becoming successful, but through honing your entrepreneurial skills, do you think you've got better at dealing with that sort of instinct and impulse, and dealing with it in a better way, in a more positive way, and turning it into successes for yourself as opposed to negatives?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I get this surge of energy, and it's something that I can then channel into something new. This year we launched Learn Ads, our new company. At the moment we're working on expanding the team quite aggressively, and so when I get that urge, when I get that kind of that complacency, there's no complacency left within my life. I kind of get this surge of energy, as I just said, and I just want to put that into something. So yeah, I definitely found a way to channel it now.
Right. And there was something else from that video, and again, these are all things that was scary how relevant they were for me. So just some of the things like you talked about drawing Yu-Gi-Oh cards when you were a kid. When I was a kid, there was a Scooby-Doo magazine used to come out with like recipes from around the world, and I used to pay the kids on my street to come into like the little garden shed house thing we had, and I would pay them to write the recipes out, and I would take them around the doors and I would sell them to people for like 50p, 20p, and people just put them in the bin, fine rightly, but they just knew to have the 50p every week, and I was just paying these kids like 15p to write out a recipe, selling it for 50p, and that was from the offset. And then you talked about your clothing brand. You had Acquire Clothing. I had a clothing brand, still do Scottish apparel, same thing, went in there with absolutely zero knowledge on how to market, on how to sell a product. And then again, you talked about nightclubs, and I managed and part owned a promotions company here in South Wales in my first years of university, and it was like I watched it, I had to show it to my partner. I was like, this is crazy, isn't it? How similar this is. Like, this is insane. And one of the things I took from that was you can be born with an entrepreneurial mindset. You can be born with that entrepreneurial tendency. How did you actually take that into entrepreneurial actions and being a successful entrepreneur from a mindset?
Well, I think first of all that the mindset that we both share is being able to throw yourself into something and not really have to worry about what happens, and to have enough to not really have enough pride to for that to get in your way, or ego that's going to stop you from then starting something new. Because I mean, I can't even count the amount of things I've tried and failed with, and so I think having that gift of being able to throw yourself into something and not worry about failure, I think is something that's a big blessing. So that's cool to hear that you've gone through so many of the same things. I think that the most important thing that you just said is about actioning things, and that goes hand in hand with that non-fear of failing. And I think the only reason why I've managed to actually materialize something to this day, why I've managed to have any level of success, whatever success means to whoever is watching this, because it's a very open-ended thing. The only reason I've been able to have any level of success is through my continuous action of hitting my sales targets, of not taking no for an answer, or if one venture fails, moving straight on to the next venture. And it's never really allowing myself to get complacent or be in a position where I'm not doing anything to actually be moving forward. So I think action is the most important thing now. I just never allow myself to get into a lull where I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, just keep yourself busy constantly. Yeah. So one of the things to kind of round out was, and this is actually a question that someone asked me, knowing that you were coming on the podcast, was obviously you talk about when you were in debt and you knew kind of what you had to do to change your life. There was only one way to get out of this. What was the actual turning point for you to say you're going to start an agency? And was there some sort of big catalyst event, or was it sort of a combination of the times you were just experiencing at that time in your life?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I got kicked out of university when I was I think I was 20 or 21 years old. And at that point I was running a nightclub business, and that started failing. And I jumped into corporate sales. And because again, as I mentioned earlier, I was financially motivated at the time. I thought that's what was going to ultimately make me happy. And the first sales job I got, I was kind of helped into that position by a friend. His name was Johnny, and I helped him into that position, and then we kind of seemed to jump from job to job together since then. So I then moved into another role, progressed, pulled him into that one. He then moved into another one and pulled me into that one. And then eventually we both were having these conversations kind of almost every day when you speak to a friend that you're very close to, and you moan about the day, you moan about your boss, you moan about your life. And one of these days, he just kind of snapped at me, and he was like, "Jordan, you're never going to be able to get out of this position unless you change something within your life right now." At this point, he'd already quit the role that we were both working in. He started an online business of his own in a completely different industry. But to him, he had his eyes opened up to just how many opportunities there were out there when you look online. Because it's scary how many opportunities there are online. My perception of business was that I was always looking for a big idea. I always had this perception that I'm waiting for my Uber, I'm waiting for my Airbnb. And every day I'd say to people, and I'd be the guy that you'd chat shit to with your friends, and you'd be talking to them and they'd be like, "Okay, yeah, cool, Jordan, whatever." But I'll be saying, "Oh, look, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to jump on stage, I'm going to do these things." Because in my mind, I was just waiting for a big idea. But then when I kind of got opened up to the world of online, I realized that you can literally replicate 1,000 other business models that are already out there. And just as long as you put the time in and you don't take no for an answer and you're resilient, then you can have just as much as success as anybody else who has done it before you. And so it was having that conversation with him, having that bit of a shake up, saying, look, you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself and kind of getting fed up of you having these conversations with me. And me looking around in the office and seeing people who were, with no disrespect to anyone listening to this, 3-4 times my age. I'm the youngest person in there, like by a quarter. And for me, it was like, I don't want to be in that position when I'm your age. I don't want to be stuck. And I was one of the highest earners in the office, but had probably the least fulfillment or least happiness throughout my job. And I just did not want to be in that position any longer. And I kind of realized, okay, cool. What are my options? Am I going to jump into a high paying role in a younger company? Okay, cool. What might that do for me? Well, that's going to give me more money. But again, I'm going to still be stuck feeling like a slave to somebody else, especially in a sales industry where you're making somebody loads of cash and you're aware of the cash you're making someone else as well. Or I just take a risk, which really isn't much of a risk because I've done that many times before. I'm not going to be unemployable because I've got a good CV and I can jump into other role if I fail after that. And so I just decided to just take that risk, which really managed to pay off. I signed my first 2 clients within 2 weeks and I quit my job, very similar to how you did. And so I think that was a turning point for me. It was really kind of having a mate say, look, Jordan, I'm fed up of you having these conversations now, joint with the fact that I realized I was going to gain no fulfillment if I carried on the path I was going.